Okay, we're at chapter 23 of the Communion of Saints. It starts at about, I think, page 226, 227. And I had suggested that you guys also watch or read the transcript on Introduction to Prayer from, I think, 16th of May, 2009. Just kind of, there's a nice correlation between the two. Did you guys get a chance to watch or read that? Yeah? Everyone know? No? Okay, 2 people didn't. Selena, did you?
Which one? The prayer?
Yeah, Introduction.
The EJ video? Yeah. I read it. Yeah.
But Karen, I mean,
I watched it.
Know it.
Yeah.
You do all the transcript. You probably already know about that.
Yeah, I have read it and watched it, obviously, but not recently.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not well. My health and it's not too good. So I'm keeping it very, very simple. I just pick a simple topic. I break down questions very, very simply just because of my own managing my own energy. So that's why when I sent my email out, it was like, I don't know, I felt like I was in kindergarten. What do you think about this? And what do you feel about that? And it's like, you know, and then I end up in hospital 2 days later and the next day. So it was like, yeah, okay, I'm justified in feeling like, I only have so much energy. So let's, but I'm happy to go into the talk about prayer itself. It's a big topic, if you like. If you want, we can follow on the suggested questions that I have set down. So how did you guys feel about that whole chapter to begin with? It kind of went down very quickly to the bully peg dandy situation. You guys liked it, Judith?
I thought it was the most beautiful chapter in the whole book.
Okay.
I just thought this was a chapter that really moved me emotionally when I first read it.
Okay.
Made me really love the book.
Okay, wow.
Heart-wrenching as well as, you know, made you happy.
Okay.
Give you hope.
Yeah, that's right. And it felt like there were some practical applications to all of these theories. You know, I feel like they're all theories that we've been learning so far. Kind of nice. Yeah, break it down. Okay. Okay, so we will start. So what's happening in this chapter is Dandy had just been, you know, released from his physical life and was now living in second sphere somewhere, but he still visited Bully Peg in the sleep state at the college. So at that time, Bully Peg came and said, I haven't eaten all day. And so now Dandy's very upset and wants to talk to this God person, or wants somebody to go talk to this God person and say, what the hell is going on? And he's very upset and all of that. And then there's all this situation that arises out of what Dandy was feeling, that in the introduction of prayer taught by Jesus said basically that was Dandy praying and God answered his prayers. So to me, this is a very exciting topic that I'm trying to understand, like scientifically, like how does this work? So the first, bottom of page 227, I had suggested a question. The paragraph was, had he been alive, Bully would have been fed somehow. This was the extent of Dandy's grievance, and he stoutly refused to accept the fact of his removal as absolving him from responsibility in connection with his friend. In his rough, untutored logic, the lad had worked out a proposition that the goodness of God was at fault somewhere to allow Bully Peg to bear this additional suffering under the circumstance of his bereavement. So my question was, how did Dandy's expectation of God's goodness trigger his prayers? Unless you have some other comment you want to have about that paragraph, Laura.
Yeah, well, because it seemed like Dandy's expectation was that God wasn't going to look after him.
Right.
Like, so he was the one kind of going, no, I've got to do something about this, and then Afra tried to talk, talk to him about that God's you know, God's all over this, God's got this. And he's like, no, you know, he didn't believe it. And that's why they had to sort of come to earth and the whole scene to play out so that it would sort of satisfy
Yes.
his thing. But my curiosity was, so he obviously had this big desire coming out of him to help his friend. But it wasn't until Mahoney came in, and I feel like it was maybe his faith.
Yeah.
Hers, I'm not sure if it's a girl or a boy. That kind of sealed the deal.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's why I kind of.
Yeah. You can feel that the change in the tone in the book itself, which is in the next chapter we can go into. Yeah, for sure. In the next point I made, so something.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
I feel that the reason why I made that point was that Danny was told that God is good. And so that's why Danny was like, well, God is good. So then because God is good, I'm expecting this to happen from a good God. So he did have an expectation that God being good, because if God isn't good, like if your parent has a certain attitude, would you even bother asking for some things? There's some things you wouldn't never even bother thinking of asking from your parents because you're like, that's not going to happen. But he did have some feeling of, or being told that God is good. Well, if he's good, then where is this and that and this and that? So that triggered the prayer because he knew to expect it.
Yeah, see, I sort of read that the other way,
Okay.
is that he kind of went, you know, if God was good, then he should be doing this, and he's not.
Yeah.
So I have to step in, but I don't know. That's
Okay.
that's the way I perceived it.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Everyone else.
Judith?
I felt like he was actually skeptical of God, which triggered the question.
Yeah.
And that brought in people to answer that question.
Yeah.
And that to me reminded me of like, if you're angry at God, like we're afraid to communicate with God because we're angry about something.
That's right.
The reality is, if we have a pure desire to know an answer to a question, so we're going to find the answer somewhere. Someone's going to come to us, or it might not be us hearing God, but through some other means, like through a person.
Yeah. And angry with God is not a bad place to be. That's honest, that's emotional, and you get to start somewhere. And usually anything I starts in anger. So that's always my top layer, and then I go down. So yeah. Okay. Karen?
Yeah, I think I interpreted a bit differently as well. I felt like he met up with his friend and he'd seen that he was hungry, and he was just trying to do whatever he could to have his friend have food.
Yeah.
And he was just thinking, if God's supposed to be good, then he would have given him food, and he hasn't, because he was thinking, I'd give him food if I could.
Yeah.
So then I felt like he was kind of almost appealing or telling people about this injustice about Bully Peg.
Yeah.
But because I felt what the real prayer was that he would have done it. Like he had such a sincere desire to help his friend.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily directed towards God, but this sincere feeling that if he could do it, he would.
Yeah.
But so then he was asking, well, who else can help with this? So then he was attracting then this other help from like Afra and then Mahani, and that's triggered. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting to me, because I feel like from like Jesus' teaching, I feel like a prayer needs to be sincere, longing, directed towards God. But this is kind of saying, well, you can just have a sincere longing something, and it's maybe not necessarily directed towards God, and it can still be answered. So I find that really interesting.
Okay. That's a good observation, that he was ready to do something about it.
Yeah, and that seemed to be, remember earlier in the book, the mother with the son that went to the bar, it was the same thing with her prayer. She would protect him if she could, but because she wasn't there, she prayed to God to protect him.
Yeah.
And so that seems to be something with prayer that you do it yourself, and if you can't, then you're kind of praying for things that you can't do yourself.
But you were willing to do it.
You're willing to do it. If you could do it, you would, but because you can't, you need help. And then
yes. Well,
in
the prayer talk, Jesus talked about God will not do for you what you will not do for you. If you're not willing to take any action for yourself, then God isn't going to do it for you either. But that's part of the prayer. Yeah, so that's a good observation. Thank you. Okay. Other points? Okay. So the next one, page 229, mine and conversation with Danny. My mind and saying that I do not know for the present. I think he was saying, how is God going to feed or when? So Myron said, that I do not know for the present, but I know God well enough to say that what you and I will see, it has been for the best presently. So just like what Laura just spoke about, how is mind and faith helping in Danny's request for assistance for bully peg? Virginia?
Well, mine has uninterrupted faith.
Yeah. Okay.
Like absolute faith. And he's very calm about it because he just knows that God is going to take care of it.
Okay.
And may not be in the time frame that Dandy wants. He just wants them to just not be hungry right now.
Yeah.
Whereas, we see later God wants him to not ever be hungry again, right? Yeah. So he's going to answer that prayer, and it's in the works. But
that's right.
How do you say that? Mayanini or Mayanini? Yeah. He just has such faith. There's no doubt in his mind at all.
Yeah.
Ever.
That's quite incredible, faith is something I guess you get from experience when you know it. Mm-hmm. But then there's something about, I feel like faith is a different part of us, that it's a different system, a different organ system itself. At one time, Jesus drew the circles and then put all of those, what we have inside of our soul. And faith is like a separate organ than all the rest of us. And that's always been captivating for me as well. But there is something about, because of that faith, he expects it to happen, or I don't know how that works, because there's something there that because of the faith, God will respond, or it makes you ask for things because you have faith about it. There's something here, it may take me 200 years to get to the understanding about this, but there's something here. Thank you. Was it Karen who raised your hand? Or Laura? It was Laura. You're both on top of each other on my screen, so.
Yeah, it kind of sparked me to go back and revisit some of the talks on faith, and I'm only through the second one. And it was similar to what we learned in one of the assistance groups as well, is this, the building the faith like the will muscle that Mary talked about.
Okay.
But it's, through experimentation and through experience that the will is faith is developed, which is sort of what you were saying as well. And it's, it's really interesting because it seems like once there's a solidity in your faith, like there's no wavering, it for certain.
Yeah.
And that's what he did. Like, okay. He saw this desire or this, thing coming out of Dandy, and he's like, well, there's no way God's not going to respond to that. Wow. So let's just go and watch and see what happens, kind of thing. Okay. He just knew, and it's like this. There's a confidence and just a real knowing that that's just how it's going to be.
So the solidity in your faith is what we need to develop. We need to develop our faith to a point where we have that solidity. And I guess you're mentioning experiments. So the experiments we can do to develop our faith. Yeah. That could be interesting. Yeah. It could be a fun thing to do as a group. We could come up with some experiments that we can do and then email each other going, so here's what I'm doing, and that could be fun. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Other comments? Karen.
Yeah, I felt kind of similar to Laura, that I feel like Mahani, he would have built that faith, and that faith would have come from past experiences of him seeing God answering prayers and of God answering his prayers. So he's at a point where he just knows that prayer is going to be answered.
Yeah.
And I feel like him having that faith, that is kind of reassured Dandy, like it's giving, to see how Dandy is responding to him and is willing to go and, like, even though he's kind of mad that he hasn't got anything to eat, at the mere promise of him getting something to eat, he's willing to follow him and observe that. And he's then having a bit of faith that that could happen.
Yes.
So
it's
God
infectious. It's
yeah, because I feel like sometimes if I'm around somebody who has a strong faith in something, it does affect me, and it does, like if you even look at Jesus, like you see how strong his faith is and things, it does have an effect on me when I'm around somebody that has that kind of strong faith. It seems to be, maybe infectious a little bit.
Yeah, because there is a difference between how Danny responded to Afra compared to how he responded to mine.
Because Afra hasn't developed that faith yet. He hasn't had those experiences with God, or with God answering prayers, whereas Mahani, I feel, would have had a lot of experience with that, which would just build, and each experience would build his faith more and more.
That's right. Holy smokes, you're nothing but faith at some point. It also makes me wonder if once you have faith in something, then does it change how you engage it? Does it change how you engage life? That you'll make different choices, you'll explore different risks, you'll express different passions because the faith will make you take those steps. I wonder that we must change you in that way as well. Yeah. Virginia and then Judith.
It would really help us to become God reliant rather than self-reliant. If we had faith, absolute faith, then we would be.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you. Judith?
Yeah, I totally agree. And this chapter is like a perfect example, because if Afar would have not had faith and tried to take matters in his own hands, the results of what would have happened could have been really detrimental.
Yeah, true. That's good. I mean, he had humility. He was like, I can't solve this. I better ask for help. That's humility right there. Yeah, but that's true.
Faith in a sense, but he just wasn't 100% sure, I guess.
But he did have faith that somebody can come and help him. Yeah. He had faith that somebody will know what to do. That's faith. That's really good. Oh, that's been his life. As soon as he entered spirit world, he's just been constantly surrounded by people at different stages showing different things. So yeah, he would have a lot of faith. Someone will show up for this request. I wonder if Afra even thought of, I want to call him M now. It's like James Bond. M for my name. I wonder if Afra thought of my name, or if he kind of directed a question to God going out, and then mine came. Like I'm curious. I don't remember reading who he directed his questions to. But that's Karen.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he directed it to him. There was something in the book.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So the next point was top of page of 230. Many other angels of God had gone away to bring someone here to give him what you wish, and perhaps more than you expect. So basically, by this point, Danny is down with the troop, watching what's going on with Bully Peg. And I think Mynan is saying that, well, there is a lot. It's not just you and me here, standing here watching to see what happened. There's a whole troop out there. There's a lot going on, a lot of movements happening at the same time. So how did that part of that paragraph and chapter affect you? It's kind of like, you know, when you're watching a movie and there's a climax coming and there's like the build up to the climax, it's like, here it comes. And yeah. Karen?
I remember when I very first read the book, this had one of the most effects on me. I just couldn't stop crying, and it made me have such a desire to develop that in myself, and it that God could just communicate, that God could communicate, and then you could do things that needed to be done, and you could have that kind of communication with God. I don't think I'd really felt that was possible before I read that. Like, this was quite a few years ago that I read it, but I just meant it had such an effect on me that that's possible, that God's working kind of directly. I felt like God's just allowing our free will and we're just doing whatever we want, and I wasn't kind of considering that God could directly tell you in that detail, go here and help somebody here, or just do that. Like, that seemed quite detailed to me. So I find that really beautiful that there's people on earth doing that.
And that there are many angels sent out to execute the plan and see what will work out.
What I was saying is that because of the, what was it, omnipresent or potent, that nothing's left to chance, that everything that could be deployed will be deployed, because none of them know the full outcome. So everyone's making the best effort they could. So I think that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because obviously God would know exactly who's going to go and who's going to answer that prayer and what would happen. But he's kind of saying, if everyone knew that, the other people wouldn't make as much effort. There wouldn't be as much effort put into it.
Yes.
And I guess those other people who get rewarded for going but couldn't go, they wouldn't have that experience if they knew when the call, I won't answer it, it's somebody else that's going to answer it. They wouldn't bother.
That's true.
The effort.
That is true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I find that all quite interesting.
Wow. You have done a lot of thinking about this. That's, Selena? No? Okay. Anybody else? Comments about that? Virginia?
Darm?
Oh, hi, Michael. Go ahead.
Hey there. If God knew who was going to respond, why would they put out a signal for, say, 3 or 4 people to head that way?
Well, I was just thinking that. I was thinking, well, one is because of free will, we could chicken out at the last minute, going, I don't know if I want to do this. Could be that. It could also be like it's an opportunity for a lot of people to get this practice of being awakened, of hearing inspiration. Will you actually take action? You're kind of developing yourself every time. So God is trying to get a few of us all up and running and practicing at the same time. So I don't know, it could be both going on. But maybe, at any time, many times I have had some inspiration and then chicken out at the last minute. So it's not fair for that person to then not get the opportunity just because I chicken out at the last minute. Could be a free will thing.
Okay, and I see there could be more good established by asking a number of people, because when I answered one of your other questions, I have felt the urge but not acted on it, or acted slowly, and then seen someone else do it and the good results from it. So that's part of the process, I think.
Yeah, and with each of those urges, something in us keep developing and growing all the time. Yeah, thank you, Michael. Virginia first and then Karen.
That's okay.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Karen.
I was just going to say, I think Michael answers in this. There's a paragraph that says, but God never makes scant provision for the success of any service. Where omnipotence is available, no result must be placed in jeopardy. So every agent employs knows a mission cannot fail, but it requires energy, concentration, and wholehearted effort on our part, for no one of us can foresee how much our particular service affects the whole. So, and then it says, God has many devices for testing the genuineness of faith.
Okay.
So he could be testing people's faith by having 3-4 people go out, but also that, like, we can't foresee how much our particular service affects the whole. So maybe there's more to it than we perceive. And and
that's true. And also there's quite a few other passages where, in other parts of the book, where it seems that you're wanting something to happen for someone, even if it couldn't happen for that person. You're wanting it is rewarded as if it was achieved. You get rewarded for wanting it. So like there's so much that goes on in our desires that we can't see how or why. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Selena.
I thought it was interesting that so many people were being motivated, but I think it also kind of depends on what they're trying to motivate them to do. So basically trying to get 3 or 4 people to pick up from what they're doing and go to a location. That's a little different than saying, you know, what you just did there was wrong. Different types of things that they're trying to get us to do, either to be conscientious or to look at things or to be careful or there's different things. But that sounds like a big deal to me, to be able to influence somebody long enough to get them to actually go to a location. That's quite a lot of pressure to get that to happen without interfering with their free will.
Yeah.
That's a big deal, getting somebody to go somewhere.
But I would call it an invitation. I'll call it an urge, an invitation. That's usually what it feels
okay.
like.
Did I say invitation?
You said interfering with your free will.
If you have too much influence, like they can only influence as much as they can without interfering with free will. So I would say getting somebody to go somewhere would require interfering with their free will to really make, like, it's kind of interesting. Like the guy said, he just decided to go to town. It was, that's kind of, that's quite a lot to just listen to that.
Yeah.
He had no intentions of going, but he went to the city.
Felt like I need to do this right now. Something is, absolutely.
Yeah.
But again, I'm calling that an invitation. I wouldn't call that interfering with my free will. It's more like
no, that's not what I mean. It's kind of the reason that, like, trying to get 3 or 4 people is because that's what I mean. Because this is kind of a little bit more difficult to do, to get someone to do that particular type of action. Like if somebody's somewhere in the moment and something's going on, they can say, quick, grab that kid, he's going to get hurt, or something, that kind of thing in the moment. And so but when it's something that has to come from a distance, they have lots of time to think about it.
Yeah, that's right. It's got a lot involved. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and think about all the reasons why am I doing this? Not do it. Yeah. I just thought that was kind of neat. They back up for that action. Yeah.
More reason for us to kind of question and hesitate and change our minds. And
if I was being asked to do something in the moment, but if somebody told me just to drive to Vancouver, I don't bet I would do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Laura, go ahead.
What I found interesting about that is the little bit just after the bit that you read out, Karen, where it says, he who lives in unbroken communion with God will hear and need not be afraid to follow the still small voice, but whose life is but a tinkling cymbal will easily be carried away by the imaginations of his own heart, which will drown the true voice of God. And that's like, wow. Because, you know, does that mean that if you're sort of passionate about your own things, you're not necessarily going to be hearing God's voice? Or if your passion is to serve, and that's what, you know, that's what's driving you, then you're going to hear it a bit more loudly. I don't know. I just sort of started thinking about that. Like, is being of service to God that we just basically, we are an instrument, like we're dedicating our lives to helping to serve God's, I don't know.
Well, yeah, that was one of the questions I had listed, Laura.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
You're so excited about this chapter. So we can do it now. Page 234. He who lives in an unbroken communion will hear and need not be afraid to follow the voice. But those whose life is but as a tinkling cymbal would easily be carried away by the imagination. So the operation of the law speedily draws the dividing line. Many are called, but few are chosen. How can you tell which is which? How can you tell if you are in direct unbroken communion and what you're hearing, you can go ahead and listen to that small voice, or, you know, am I just being carried away by the imaginations of my heart? How would I know which is what is acting on me right now? Especially when I'm still slowly cleaning up my addiction into becoming more harmony. How would you know? Karen?
I reckon by the results.
Okay.
When you acted on it.
Okay.
What happened?
Okay.
Because I reckon if you were acting on God, like the result would be something that you wouldn't really imagine.
Okay.
That you wouldn't be really thinking of, and that the rewards of that would be much bigger.
Okay.
You'd feel differently, and things would start to shift in your feel.
That's a good one. So in either case, do it.
Do it, yeah,
breaking.
And then assess the results.
And then yeah, that's a good point. Okay. What else? How else would you know the difference? Judith?
I mean, I personally don't know if I would know the difference, you know, and that's a really good question.
Yeah.
What if you do something for someone and you can't see the results? Like you're driving, you're going to the hairstylist, you pull off the freeway and there's a young homeless couple asking for money. And so you give them $20 because you feel like they must need it, but then you worry, oh, are they just going to go do drugs with this?
Yeah.
So but I guess because I have fear and I don't have faith, maybe that's the key. If I had more faith.
Or it's good that it got triggered, then you can go, okay, I just did something, but now fears is creeping in.
Yeah.
I process the fear, and then that way next time it'll be even clearer. You know, like when I felt the urge of, I should pull over and check them out. Like, was that urge from God, or was that something that was just, you know, imagination of the heart? Or so, but either way, you did it, like what Karen said, do it. But then I think it's okay to feel the doubts coming in. That's just something you need to purify and process. Doesn't mean, I don't think that necessarily mean that you acted on the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. That's just help you purify. And then next time you'll be even clearer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Laura, how would you know the difference? Okay.
Yeah, I don't really know, to be honest. I feel like maybe if you had the desire to be of service to God, then you'd be more open to it. But, you know, if you didn't have that desire, then perhaps you wouldn't know.
Well, okay. And when you do have a desire to be of service, it takes time to purify it. So, you know, while you're going along it, it's kind of like a gradient, I feel like, that it takes time to experiment, and then you may act on it and then go, oh, I thought I was sincere, but turns out I'm not. And that's okay. Just keep at it.
Yeah, and you possibly have addictions at play as well that, you know, need to be exposed in that whole process, or, you know, even just saying something to someone, sparking some sort of seed, but realizing that, you know, this is an area where you've got a bunch of stuff to heal as well. You know, the ethical issues, or, you know, that, yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, it could be a whole learning process regardless.
And it doesn't mean that you're not wanting to be of service. Is that, you know, just because you haven't purified it yet doesn't mean that it's nothing and you should give up and walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah, good one to sort out. Was it, who raised your hand? Jenny or Selena? Somebody did. No.
I had, but it's sort of been spoken about, as I was going to say. You can I look at what my desires are, what I feel I'm being prompted to do, and look at whether is it a loving action, or is my ego in here?
Okay.
What is, and if sometimes, because I'm, you know, still living an addiction, I don't always know. I can't always see it. So you still have to try it. But sometimes it can be clearer.
Okay.
Where it's coming from,
yeah.
and what the intention really is.
Yeah. For me, I usually have to act and then go, oh, now I can feel where that came from. So I just have to do it and then go, oh, okay, that wasn't very clean. Yikes, right. So I think taking action still helps. It still gives you some kind of feedback, and then you can figure it out. Okay, so now we'll go back up to page 233. Again, back to the conversation of the summons. In some cases, I've known 2 or even 3 answer the precognitive summons, but as soon as one sets out, the fact is made known to the whole band of workers, who then relinquish their efforts with the many and concentrate their influence on the one, until in performing the service, he presently recognizes how wonderfully the hand of the Lord has guided him in the matter. Have you had this experience where you felt the urge to do something or go somewhere or call someone, and then either the urge suddenly disappeared or that you did act on your urge? Just in case we can all think of some examples where you felt this kind of like, not necessarily go to Vancouver or drive somewhere far, but maybe text somebody, call somebody, sign up for something. Yeah, have you all had experiences, Virginia?
I recently had an experience where I had just felt somebody kept popping into my thoughts, so I thought I should text them, but it was busy, so I didn't do it, and then found out that something actually, you know, pretty traumatic was happening in their life that day, around that time. So not that I would have been able to help in any way, but it just kind of gives me more faith in when I have these urges that I should be acting on them.
Okay.
And I don't always do it right away.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I do it right away. Sometimes I check in after and then go, oh, that's why I felt it. But it does build the faith of like, oh, I could have trusted that feeling after all. So it does, yeah. And it's okay to have to work out how to develop that. Who else before Selena? Was somebody else raising their hand? Judith? No? No, Selena?
I'm finding that more and more often things that I hear that I've been told, I listen better and I'm acting on them because I do see results often.
Okay.
Yeah. So
is it something like I feel like I need to call somebody, or I feel like I need to go?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Just more like, especially, you know, you feel love for them, and it kind of overcoming the feelings of rejection and things like that to act on.
Yeah.
Like, why are you calling me? You know?
Yeah.
Those kinds of feelings. So I'm feeling I have more courage to confront stuff like that, those feelings, and just act on. So somebody goes, well, why are you calling me? You know, that's kind of weird. You never call me.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, it's okay.
and
to just be okay with that. Yeah.
Sometimes when they even respond with like, no, I'm doing okay, why are you calling me? You never know what you just interrupted them from, what you just distracted them from. So even that could have been a good thing. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. I think too, I have more faith. I know I talked to my dad before he died about the spirit world, and he really didn't have much thought about any of it, really. And I just said, well, just in case, this could be the way it works, just keep. And he did come to us like in mediumship the other day, so for some help. And I think he actually mentioned that he remembered. And I had talked about that, and maybe I knew what to do, or we did, or, because I had brought it up, that he remembered that there was something that I said that was just different, but he thought it was really weird.
Okay.
But what he was doing wasn't working, so
that's lovely.
He figured he would, So that's nice to know that. I like that. I know Jesus says to do that.
Okay.
If you ever get a chance, and of course I spend a lot of time around old people, so if you ever get a chance to talk to them, if there's any opening, and like sometimes they'll just ask, what do you think about God, or what happens after you die, or they ask sometimes.
Okay, thank you. So next we go into page 233. While in the result, their ready response to the call will be accepted as equivalent to their having rendered the soul service, and the reward will be equally to each having done what they could. How does this statement affect you? How does it change your desire to help in the future? So basically, a lot of people started to take the action to respond to the call. And then one person, I guess, really got on the bus or something, like somebody was actually on his way. And then the poll was pulled from all the other people, like, okay, somebody's got it. So what they're saying here is that they will get, I think the reward will be equally to each having done what they could. So I think they get rewarded for what they could, for what they did try to do, but also that it's equivalent as if they did do it. They also get that reward as if they were the one that did it, because they did step up there. I'm trying to guess that that's what the statement is saying. So knowing that, how does that, like, nothing goes unnoticed, no good deed goes unrewarded. How does that change? How does that influence you in how you want to, in the stuff you want to do for others or yourself? Virginia, and then Laura.
I just love reading that. That was
okay.
It's a really great thing that I tend to minimize sometimes little things that I do, feeling like I didn't really help that much.
Yes.
And it just makes me feel, like, gives me more faith in saying that I should continue. Regardless of how small it is, just continue to do it anyway. Because it could be a little part of this greater work that God has got happening, and you just did your part in it, even how small it is, but it needed to be done, right?
Okay, that's lovely. Wow. Yeah, that's and what I'm getting from reading this whole book is that it does take a whole village of even celestial spirits. Everyone's doing their part, even though we think they're like, wow, you're phenomenal. But they are saying like, no, I can do my bit, and then all the others are going to come and do their bit based on their gift and their nature. So no part is too small. That's beautiful, Faith. Was it Karen who raised your hand? Oh, somebody else raised your hand. Oh, Laura. Oh, you two are that corner of my screen. Go ahead, Laura.
It actually does make me think about like how God rewards all of them as all people as if they've done the task.
Yeah.
And it kind of, this thought dropped into my head, how it sort of removes this element of potential competition that people might have to want to be there.
Good point.
Yeah, like I remember in school, everyone wanted to be, you know, in primary school, they wanted to be the best because God would love them the most, you know, and it's,
wow.
it kind of just made me think of, how that it just removes completely the competition element. Not that you'd probably have that in you if you were already in a place that you were ready to serve God, but
You still have those injuries.
obviously it's in me because I wouldn't have popped into my head otherwise.
I have a very strong desire to be a good person because then I'll be rewarded. That's something that was hammered in me since I was in preschool. That's a tough thing to remove. So at this point, the motivation is still pretty strong. And it's going to take time to remove it. Yeah. Okay. I like that. I like that perspective. Like, oh yeah, there's no competition. All of you get first prize. It's great. I love that. Thank you. Other comments about this one? No. Okay, so then we can go to page 235 when Bully Peg had that kid that kept beating him to selling the matches. And at some point, I think he pushed him or something, and then all the matches fell. And then lit up, exploded on top of it, like exploded, like God, it was so visceral. And so such a catastrophe was sufficient to crush a man under the painful circumstance. And while the jubilant rival howled with delight at the result of the scuffle, Bully broke down in his hopeless extremity and wept piteously. So that when I read that, I'm going, oh, wait a minute. I wonder if God created those circumstances so that Bully Peg would connect to the causal emotion. Like now he's in his causal of, I am hopeless, I'm feeling very helpless, like all hope is lost, and he's crying in that despair. And I'm thinking, I wonder if that needed to happen. And then, the person that came to his rescue actually noticed him because of it. Then he said, there, what's going on? What happened to you? Here, let me pay for your matches. So I'm just kind of curious about that interaction. Any thoughts about that? Judith?
I thought it was just like in order to get the man's attention, something so horrible had to happen. And I mean, you know, what person to see a child cry like that, their heart wouldn't break.
Yeah, that's right.
And but I guess many people's hearts don't break because no one reached out to help him but the man.
That's right, the one that was summoned there for. But then he had to. But I do kind of go. But I guess he had to go into his causal emotion a little bit and get it out. Maybe.
But I mean, it made me question, like, do children have causal? Mostly children feel what they feel automatically, don't they? Unless they are ashamed to not feel.
Right.
So that was an interesting question that you asked. Because I don't know if children.
Well, I mean, he has inherited and absorbed a lot of emotions from living on the streets from God knows when. So, I mean, that's a lot of pain you got to process through.
Yeah, and not even knowing if he has a parent.
Yeah.
He was put on the street at such a young age.
And he accepts that that's kind of like, oh, that's normal, that's reality. You accept that somehow you deserve it. So somehow you still got to connect to that emotion and release it. I think maybe that's part of the way the law works. Was it Selena and then Laura?
This really made more, I don't know, I felt it more because Jesus in that video was talking about how he was only 5.
Oh.
Like that is so little. Like that's, and to think, like, especially speaking of, like it would have taken something so, like to have been so terribly defeated in order to cry. Because, and he's only 5. Like 5-year-olds cry about everything. Like my granddaughter who's 4, she cries all the time about everything. You know, her sister annoys her, she cries, you know. You know, like a little kid like that, he's probably like, what would be the point of crying? It would have to be something pretty awful, like his friend has died and he's starving. He hasn't eaten the whole next day, not the next day, and he has just lost his only hope for eating. And he's so hungry. And he's 5. And that's what it took to get him to cry. So the guy could, like, it would take a lot. Like, that's one tough little kid, you know, already at 5. That's pretty sad. Yeah.
Laura?
I think it's an interesting point you raised, because if he had have cried the day before when he was hungry, perhaps he would have gotten food then.
But then, you gotta wonder.
And so he's obviously shut down enough to not, to suppress his emotion until something drastic happens. So it obviously needed to happen on some level for him to reach that point. And it kind of, it attracted the guy to him as well, like you said. So it's like works in a few different ways.
When you accept that you must not have words, and that's why you have no parents and you're living on the street, right? Like, you accept the words, then it's going to take a bit to get you to go, something is wrong with this. I am really devastated about this. So that's the thing about words. We accept it, then we accept it. We don't grieve the emotion, we accept it. You're living in it.
And of course, when we're on earth, we don't know that grieving leads to something change in some way. Yeah. So we just kind of think it's a pointless thing to do most of the time. But
Judith and then Karen.
I just felt like poor Bully Peg was at his wit's end. Like, everything he tried was failing.
Yeah.
And then to have this to happen, it was like devastating.
Yeah.
It was like, what else? There was no more hope left. Everything that he had was gone. So
we really have to be pushed into that corner, right, before we finally, when we have that much resistance built. Karen.
I'm confused about this part, because I feel like the man was coming anyway. Like, he's been sent in answer to the prayer, so he's come. So I'm wondering if that didn't happen, if Bully Peg didn't cry and didn't lose matches, I feel it still would have been helped anyway.
Okay.
Because I feel like the prayer's already, but I don't know. See, I feel there's 2 elements of prayer, like when you're praying for somebody else. One is that you have a sincere desire, and so you're praying for somebody else based on that, and so God's going to answer that. But also that other person has to be able to receive it. So they have to be able to receive the prayer and be open to what the person is praying for. Yeah. So I don't know whether this grief part is part of him receiving it. I don't really understand it. But I have a feeling the prayer would have been answered whether he cried or not, because people had already been put into...
Sorry.
Because the man's already there. Like, he's already been...
But then he had to have been discovered. I think it helped with the discovery.
Yeah, it's definitely helped. But I'm wondering if it didn't happen, it just would have been more difficult for the man to figure out who he was there to help.
Why am I here?
Yeah, who am I looking for? Like, it would have been much harder.
Possibly. I wouldn't even know who. When I get this kind of feeling, I don't know who or what or why. I'm like, I'll go with it and see what's happening. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have a clue now either. But I feel like if you become more sensitive, you would, because you're sense enough to feel, oh, I need to go to this location. Then sure enough, when you get to this location, scanning a number of people, you would be pulled to one particular person. You'd be sensitive enough to go, well, it's that person. But
then you need the excuse. You can't just go to a kid going, can I feed you? And
what would you need help with?
So I guess Bully Peg did have to be made vulnerable and soft and willing to receive. That's a really good point, actually. Judith.
Oh, I just felt like he had to really be because of the time that this book takes place in, these children apparently were everywhere on the street. It was not uncommon.
Yeah.
So I thought something really bad had to have happened to draw that man's attention to him.
Okay.
But I think that's a good point too, to make Bully open to receiving the help, because Bully might not have been open to receiving the help if he had his matches and he just wanted the 2 coins, you know.
Yeah. Going deeper, Laura, go ahead.
Yeah, the guy said, the elderly gentleman who helped him said, now I know why the dear Lord put it in my heart to come to the city. Come on, my child, come and have some breakfast at once. So it was through that consolation of his tears that they ended up having a conversation, and then, you know, so obviously, yeah, it needed to happen that way. So maybe he didn't know exactly what the thing is. He just had the feeling to go to the city, and it will be revealed at the time. So,
well, that actually takes me to the next point we're going, which is that.
Oh, well, it keeps happening.
You're a precog today, Laura. You're like always like a step ahead. So now I know why the dear Lord put it into my heart to come to the city. And have you had experiences where you could see that the urge to do something came from God and that you were glad you acted on it? Have you had those experiences yourself? Because he was feeling gratitude, like, I'm so glad I did this. So have you had those experiences where you did one of those weird things and then you're like, ooh, I'm so glad I acted on that? You may not know it came from God, but you kind of go, wow, am I glad I did that? Yeah, Laura and then Judith.
I don't remember having, I'm sure I probably have, but it just made me think like maybe this is a good thing to record if we do, you know, to build faith.
To grow faith. What an experiment. Oh, that's a good experiment. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know that there's been times where it's happened, but I need to write that in my faith journal, you know.
That's a good experiment. Next time we feel these urges, we start to go, time receive inspiration, a little iPhone. And then I acted on it to go, what happened? What happened? And then here's the outcome. But I got that there was something going on.
Yeah, like measure the results of whether you did or you didn't, what that felt like either way.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, that'd be a good one.
That would be a good one. It's like, oh, was that just spirits having fun at me because I'm running an experiment, or was that God's urges? So that's quite one to act on. That'd be a good one. And Judith, was it you? You raised your hand? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel it more. I can say when I got the job to help the CASA thing, that was something from God, but it also helps the child, but it helps me too, know. But I see these signs more of things that I receive all the time.
Okay.
Like being asked to join this book group,
right,
which kind of came out of the blue.
Yeah.
And so is a sign of, an answered prayer, going online and having a video come across my YouTube that seems to have an answer in it.
Okay.
Something I'm thinking of. That's how I see it, but I don't see it. I haven't felt it enough myself or put myself in the place to, I guess, be of service, to be aware of how I can help others.
Or have helped others.
Or have helped, yeah.
Yeah, maybe you could ask, and then, because if you have feeling of unworthiness, like Virginia was pointing earlier, then you minimize what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you could receive some answers, and it'll grow your faith that,
Right. Even before we did the recording, I spoke about the Facebook and the Trump stuff, and like not wanting to speak out to somebody who puts a lot of vitriol out there.
Yeah.
Out of fear, or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Other comments about that? So the last point is, and then there's the last point, but then there's also a quotation from the prayers lecture on introduction of prayer that I've been scratching my head about. It's this is when Jesus talking about Billy Pegg and Dandy's experience on it. I think Mary steps in and asks some question to clarify. It's so good when she does that. So God was waiting for somebody to bring themselves into harmony with her love, and then God can act. This is from the prayer talk. Like I said, I have to read the transcript because I get too excited. I can't. I'll be stopping it every time. So what happened then is that Dandy brought himself into harmony with God's love and God's will, and then God could act. And I'm still going, so wait, how? What happened? So I'm mostly just trying to like break it down step by step, going, how did that work? But basically what happened in this story is that Dandy came into harmony. I guess God wants Willie Pegg to eat and have a home, and then so did Dandy. Dandy in his feelings wanted the same thing God did, and so God could act. Though God was already acting, but God could really act because then that prayer of somebody wanting what God wants does something to this whole system, is what I'm trying to figure out. Do you see how that's playing out? What are your thoughts about it? Judith and then Karen?
I mean, and as part of the book, I mean, it seems like Dandy wanted only Bully to get food. He didn't understand that there was something far greater and grander that Bully could get. And that's what I thought was a really neat part of the chapter.
Okay.
When he had faith.
God topped him up. That's
yeah,
really
and he had no clue that even probably didn't appear like he even knew those places existed.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow. Was it Laura? No, Karen. The Australian corner. Oh my God! You both have hair. Just
confused. I was gonna say, yeah, I find that really beautiful that, like you're saying, that when somebody has the same desire as God, brings himself into harmony with God, that more like God can act even more. And that's why I think there's even more power when a group of people have the same desire in harmony with God. I feel like God can act even more in those circumstances. So I feel like there's something in it with God wanting, because I feel like God's trying to teach us how to create and act in our desires and have loving desires. So when we have a loving desire in harmony with God, that God responds to it to teach us that it is loving and it is in harmony with God.
Oh, like a feedback system. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah. So I feel like, Dandy.
What's the idea about group? The reason is that because each of us being unique and having a specific emotional nuance, the same prayer will activate different part of our soul. Like we'll want things from our own personal history and our own personal desires, and so it enhances it. I feel like that's why group prayer, I feel, is powerful, because my reason for praying for why I want 5-year-olds to have homes would have a different emotional flavor and intensity and desire than each and every one of us here. And together it just creates beautiful harmony of some kind. So that's why I usually wonder if that's why group works. Like when a group prayer works, then same prayer, but it'll have a different, you'll call for different things somehow and a different response. That's what I'm thinking when you say group prayers, Karen.
Yeah, because I kind of feel like it's almost the same desire. So like you're praying for the 5-year-olds to have home and I'm praying for the 5-year-olds to have home. While there might be a different emotional flavor to it, we both are praying for the same thing. And so two people praying for it, I feel God can act more than just one person praying. And then if 100 people pray for that, I feel that has an even bigger because you've got 100 people saying, I'm willing to do whatever I can to make sure these people have homes. Yeah, I don't know, and I don't understand.
I know.
Understand it really, but I just have kind of noticed that there's more power in groups. Like the more people that, like, there's a power in common desire. I feel more things can get done and happen than just one person having it.
That's a good one to experiment on as well. If there's something going on, one of us then send out an email to the group going, can I get the group to step in, and can we all pray for this in however it calls to us? Because it's got to call to you. It's got to personally awaken your emotions to go, oh, wow, this is terrible, and here's what I wish for and pray for. And whether or not I can do something about it, I still feel like praying about it can still have an effect. Yeah. So the final point I had brought up for discussion was page 237, the happy ending. Danny returned home to paradise. He had the consolation of knowing that Bully Peg was fully provided for by reason of an importunate prayer and a father's loving response. What situations do you have in your life that also provoke similar response as Dandy's, and what prayers can you ask for that may help the same way as Bully Peg was helped? So what situations do you have that you go, I'm in harmony with God about this issue and my desire that I could also then pray for? Or is there something that you're saying, there's something going on in the world or in somebody I know, maybe I could activate? Maybe I could go have a tantrum like Dandy did and go, God, bang, 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 here's what I want. If that's what it takes, what could you pray for or wish to ask for help for? If sky is the limit, or according to the book, beyond the sky is the limit, what would it be for you? For me, it is for everyone to have food and shelter. It's just something as basic, and that people don't kill each other, like just basic stuff, I think is basic, but that's, Judith, did you raise your hand?
Well, I was thinking more towards myself. Is that the question about what I would want personally?
Yeah, absolutely.
And working on the worth, and you made a remark, which is interesting. God will not, do for you what you won't do for yourself.
Yeah.
When you don't
That's what Jesus said in his talk, yeah.
Yeah, so just even being in this talk today made me realize something about this. I get depressed and I find like you feel like you want to give up and you don't want to try anymore.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they came forward, but that's kind of like a prayer I would have to develop more desire for self-improvement.
Yeah. Yeah, to treat is a love of self, right? Because that's one of the key. Yeah, love of God, love of self, love of soulmate, love of others, and a love of environment. Yeah.
And working on my fear, and I think I've recognized I've got a lot of fear.
Ha! You made my day. Yes, get them out. Okay, thank you.
Even though they say that God can't help us with our fear because we created it, but I guess it's just us learning that.
That's it. For God's sake, just get rid of it. Just don't negotiate. Don't make a big thing of it. Just get it out. Just start to feel that dread. I mean, you live in the US. Shouldn't be too hard right now. I'm processing my fear of like January 20th, which is my dad's birthday, by the way. It's like, okay, let's start processing some fear. I'm processing fears just so I can get it going and not hold on to it. And that affects the environment. It affects the outcome. Like it has a huge impact. It's a good opportunity. Yeah, thank you. Selena?
I have an ex-client that I provided nursing care for her probably 3 or 4 times a week for a few years. And she's now not living here, but I speak to her on the phone. And she's so broken in her soul and in her emotions and in her in every way a person can be broken, she's broken.
Yeah.
And I pray for her to be in the magnetic corral. So I pray for her.
Yeah.
Because she just needs a break so badly. She just needs that kind of gift because she's so broken. So I hope she qualifies. I keep praying that she qualifies for that kind of healing. Yeah. Yeah.
You can even ask, what could I pray for her?
Yeah.
And then you'll receive inspiration of, oh yeah, I could pray for this, I could pray for that. And ask what to pray for.
Yeah, I would talk to her for hours about divine truth, but she just couldn't absorb it.
Yeah.
She just can't. And she loved me talking about it. She asked me to talk about it, but she can't apply it to herself at all.
At this point.
Hopefully someday she can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Others? Laura?
I've been experimenting with praying this week. And I've been using what you just said. Coming up with things myself, but then also like, God, you probably know better than I do what the best prayer for the person would be.
And do you receive answers? What kind of answers do you get?
Well, not necessarily an answer. It's just more like a feeling of like, I don't know, acknowledgement or just a warmth, I guess, is what I feel.
Wow. Okay.
Feels a lot stronger than what my prayer would have ever been.
Okay, so you're probably going, no, those prayers are good, keep going.
Actually, there's some like praying to help people to soften to the emotional cause of something, or
that's a really nice prayer. Help people soften to the cause of emotions. Well, I like it. Okay, I like that one. Okay.
And also, to help us to develop our own desire to connect to God or to receive God's love or something like that. Like that'd be a pretty amazing prayer for everyone to receive on the planet and in the spirit world. Just a desire for God's love that's going to help us the most, isn't it? Like having that.
That is a beautiful one. And that prayer has a lot of meaning for you, right? Because it's got to mean something to you. It's got to matter to you that people get that. You value why. So it matters. Like to me, it matters to me that everyone get food and shelter. I'm invested in that desire. So I think that your emotion has to get activated, that you care about it. Yeah. Others? Okay. Okay. I will stop the recording here.